So let me invite Mr. Arun Mahesh Babu IAS, Managing Director, Uttar Gujarat Witch Company Limited and Gujarat Power Corporation Limited. His topic is harnessing technology to drive energy transformation. And let me also inform you that both Arun Mahesh Babu and Musharraf Faruqi will be also joining us for the next panel discussion. There again, we'll have different perspective from them as well. So over to you, Sri Arun Mahesh Babu IAS. A huge round of applause for him, please.
Thank you very much, the wonderful organizing committee of APAC as well as Central Electricity Authority. Probably this is the first presentation of today's session. First of all, thank you to Central Electricity Authority and APAC for getting me the stage to present our case here. I represent the Gujarat Discom, the North Gujarat Discom, which functions basically from Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, and takes care of about 9 to 10 districts. And I also represent the Gujarat Power Corporation, which is presently the leading renewable power center, which is driving the entire renewable energy transition in the state of Gujarat. So welcome all, and I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces as well as esteemed guests here. And I take this opportunity to present my case in front of you. I would be presenting in about 4 basic sessions. So first is the transformation of power systems from the fossil to non-fossils. Then second, the sustainable future. I'm sure we stand to present this case in a bigger scenario. And third is the newer innovations, which is the kind of future, that is storage systems. And fourth would be, at any point of time, smart grid distribution systems. Without further delay, I just wish to show this. So this is presently, I would be moving from the world scenario to the national scenario and last to the state, which I represent here on the stage. So the first one is the power systems in the world. We took a baseline of the year 2020. So this is how the present system works. So we are producing a lot of power. We have the transmission grids, and we also distribute power. But the problem is we all work in silos where there's a lot of discoupling that's happening, and there is a lot of coupling that is required to do. So we've got about 12 million electric vehicles as of now. We've got about 1.5 terawatts of renewable power. But the global shore of flexible load, the way we mix up solar and the cycles along with the fossil fuel load is a big question. And the battery storage is 11 gigawatt in the entire world is a very small terms of reference. So what I propose here is by the year 2050, as we heard to our former speaker, Shri Rajnath Ram, has been very helpful in driving this energy transition. So by the year of 2050, if the entire world is going to transform from what it is today, we would see high level of coupling. That is where we are talking about one grid around the entire planet. I'm sure the Honorable Prime Minister has also been speaking that we should have one grid around the planet. And I'm sure this coupling will happen when there is a sharing of grid between the nations. So that is how G20 and SAARC and all would work together. The number of vehicles expected to grow is about 836 million in the next 30 years. The renewable portfolio would be expected to increase by about 12 terawatts. And this is the flexible load share would be about 8%, starting from about 1%. And battery storage, which is the part of future, if you want to use transition power from solar and wind and hybrids, the storage would be a big challenge. So having said that, right from production, we also have a transmission system. So the transmission infrastructure in India's case scenario. So we move from the world to India. So in India's terms of reference, we have about 8.68% of growth in terms of substation capacity, taking from the growth of the last, say, 8 to 9 years. We've got about 75,000 megawatt of substation additional capacity that has happened in the last 10 years from the reference of, say, 2016. We also, as on January 24, we have about 12,25,000 megawatts of total substation transformation capacity, which would also encompass the renewable power once it gets injected. Having said that, the growth transition in the energy sector, basically the energy sector after production is a major system is the 765 kV lines that we always see, which PGCIL gets it done, or any transmission company involved in any state is doing. So we expect about 4.71% of growth in the transmission sector, where you would have all high voltage lines above 66, 220, 765 lines. We are expecting a capacity addition of about 14,625 kilometers in the coming financial years. And the total transmission lines capacity would increase to about 4,81,326 kilometers. So this is again from NITI Aayog's plan. So I'm sure we are all in the same pathway of taking this ahead. Now, talking from the world scenario to the national scenario, we're talking about the state which I represent. One of the leading states in the leading the energy transition right now is the state of Gujarat. We've taken the base year of say March 2015 and brought it to about February 2024. If you see the transition that we have undergone through the last 8 to 9 years, is you can see the red is the coal part. That's just 7.3% increase of coal and renewable power, then thermal power. But if you look at the green part, and if you look at the total installed capacity, we have increased our renewable energy capacities by 400%. So that is where India's leading state of Gujarat is the leader in terms of renewable energy transition. So I justfully beg to present my case in this scenario. So why innovation? Because this sustainability conclave is all about innovation and how we can stitch innovation into the present system of energy transition. So this is the current carbon dioxide emissions. By the year 2024, if you see this graph is gonna dip down once we have good technologies and innovations coming up. So this is where we are starting to introduce hybrid cells. We are starting to talk about solar and wind and all other energy storage systems. And by the year if 2050 that's what 2047 is the Viksit Bharat plan. If you go by that, we require to deploy a lot of innovative technologies. So to represent the justification for our case of increasing innovations, we need to do all these. So we need to have good technological intervention. We did have a lot of deliberations on what things should be adopted, what things should not be adopted by various discoms, various generation powers, various private industries. So the increase of plant efficiency of thermal power plants is also a big question. So we need to have a lot of R&D happening. If you see the typical case, you have a lot of private players like Westinghouse and GE running their plants, and we are supported by BHL in India. But a lot of R&D needs to go into this because our plans were as back as 1975, 1980, 1990, with very less of R&D development that's happening locally. We also need to have a lot of sectors in the transition and logistics sector for transportation of all these heavy logistics, because windmills, solar and everything need a lot of transition. And this can only happen when there's an accelerated development of enabling infrastructure. Enabling infrastructure means good roads, good rail networks, good carrying capacity logistics. So now coming to the Gujarat case scenario, what we have planned right now is this. This is the existing solar parks, wind parks in BESS portfolio. This is the state of Gujarat. So the first 700 megawatt solar park which came up in India was done by Gujarat Power Corporation, that is GPCL. And second park which came up was 730 megawatts in a place called Charanka, that is in the district of Patan. So this is way back in the year 2014-15, when the power of solar was 15 rupees per unit. And now this 1000 megawatt solar park in Dholera, I'm sure one of my friends are also participating in it. We are tying up at 2.73 rupees or 3 rupees. So if you need to talk about power transition, cost of power has to decrease, and that is how you need to transform it to the customer. Now, this is one new thing which is going on, 30,000 megawatts of solar park. So this is the world's largest solar park that's coming. We have got about 5-6 PSUs and 3-4 private players participating in this. Once this park is done, we become the world's largest solar power developer. So we expect it's already about 1,000 megawatts is charged. We've got about another 29 gigawatts to be charged in the next 2 to 2.5 years. So this is how we intend to take the energy transition ahead. So what Rajnath Samsar was telling about 1,600 gigawatts, we intend to do about 450 gigawatts. The entire nation is planning for 450 gigawatts by 2030. So such parks would happen. Rajasthan, the Badla would develop. A lot of land utilization happens, and Gujarat has a very proactive land allocation policy for the reason of solar powers. Now, this is another additional RE potential. So in coordination with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, we've been trying to notify these areas. That is the region of Kutch and below. We've explored something about 15 gigawatt of RE potential existing there due to the wind studies as well as solar parks. And there's another additional 7 gigawatt of RE potential in the northern districts of Gujarat. So in addition, we expect 30 plus another, say 22. So about 52 gigawatts coming from a single state. Now, this is also, again, I'm sure Niti Aayog would agree to this. There's a talk for the leasing of 500 megawatt of seabed leasing for offshore wind, because offshore wind has been the talk of the town since last 10 years, but the offtake and transition on the ground is taking its own time. but we expect this to happen very soon. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is already taking it up in its stride, and we expect this to happen. So this is for the solar developers and renewable energy people, and this is for the transmission people. So we expect to have a green energy corridor. The planning is being done. We have filed with CEA, and CEA and PGCIL are taking it in an advanced stage. And the state government of Gujarat is also planning for a green energy corridor, because so much of green power without evacuation systems and transmission systems has no meaning. So this is in the advanced stages of planning, and little bit of implementation has also started. So I told you earlier, this is the Charanka Ultra Mega Solar Park, which we did way back in 2015. This started with 15 rupees. Now the power is sold at 2.73 rupees. The second one is the Raganesda Ultra Mega Solar Park. There was 700 megawatts implemented in 2014. And this is a typical case scenario of how you use wastelands to convert into storage houses of energy and power. So this offtake has given us the success story to lead the transition ahead. So these are all solar parks. Now this is the one which we're talking about, the 30,000 megawatt, 30 gigawatt solar energy park. So we have one private player who is doing about 50% of this. And we've got about other PSUs, the central PSUs and the state PSUs also, who are starting to do this. So if you see, the utilization of about 72,000 hectares of wasteland is being converted into a mega solar park. And once completed by the year of 2026, this would be visible from space. That is what is expected, because it would encompass an entire region of the district of Kutch. So this is how we're doing. And the power transmitted through this is going to the national grid. So it is not just for a state, it is for the national energy security. So in turn, we believe that this kind of major parks created in any state would actually help in achieving the goal of 1600 gigawatts, which the Ministry of Power has envisaged. This is one case scenario of battery energy storage systems. So this is the first solar village in the country. This is called Modhera. It has a history added to it. If you talk about sun temples, there are two sun temples. One is the very famous Konark Sun Temple in the state of Orissa. I'm sure a lot of Oriyas would take a lot of pride in talking about the Sun Temple. But there's another Sun Temple in Gujarat also, which is called the Modhera Sun Temple. So this was also dedicated to the sun god. So this is a very ancient historical place. So there was a vision of the government that this should be converted into its own glory. So how do you bring the sun and back to this glory? So we decided that we'll convert this entire village to solar power's village. So now this entire village runs on solar power. It is grid connected, but 99% it runs on solar, and in the night time, we use the stored battery energy storage. So initially it started off with say about 15 megawatt hour of battery. Now we are upgrading it to about 50 to 60 megawatt hour. And we also have the grid connected rooftop solar systems in each households. So now all these people who were consuming electricity are now producing electricity, and they have become consumers. So they produce more and consume less. And this lighting which is there and the laser show which runs, it's completely on solar power. So we stored that and then we utilize that for such kind of sessions. So you can see how we have taken the parking stands as solar rooftops, the village into solar rooftop, the grids and the local standalone grid is also connected to the central grid. Now, talking about innovation and this particular conference, we need to talk about storage systems, because without storage systems, we are not able to use the daytime solar power. We get the maximum solar power from say 9 in the morning till say 4 in the evening at max. So what about rest of the time? So we need battery energy storage systems. So this is how we did our pilots, and now we are taking it ahead. GPCL did one project in Modhera. Now we plan to do under the national scheme, one village in every district. So that's 33 districts. So we do about 33 villages completely into solar. And the next phase would go, it's 3 villages in every district. So this is also a very ambitious program. And very recently, the Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited came up with a battery energy storage tender, which is for about 250 megawatts at the substation level, at the injection level. And the prices have come down to very, very competitive prices. So we think we would be forging ahead in these cases. This is one of the things which SECI is also exploring in Gujarat in an advanced stage. This is actually present in the UAE as of now. Saudi Arabia is also doing quite good in this. There is one small plant in Andhra Pradesh also. It's a very small pilot project, but this is something which has not been spoken about. When you talk about typical lithium ion storage, it talks about say 2 to 3 hours of storage. but this is molten salt and thermal storage, which is talking about 18 hours of storage of stored electricity power. So it typically works like a dial. You focus the entire solar energy to one part, and that is where your heating and energy production and the turbines run on that case. And whatever energy is being produced, it is stored in molten salt as well as underground in this case. So this is in a pilot testing phase. We are in discussion phase also. SECI is also planning to try this in the systems. So without taking much time, I would like to come to smart grid distribution systems, which is the second part, because we talk about a lot of production of RE power. We talk about a lot of transmission systems getting that, but the DISCOMs are not ready to, transmit that thing, because the grid capacity of existing DISCOMs on the 11 kV lines or 66 kV lines is not smart enough. So that is where we need to have smart distribution grid systems. We need a lot of technology intervention in these cases. So this is the present scenario. You can see that the generation happens in both, say, fossil and non-fossil, then the transmission, the distribution, and finally, that is the consumers who consume these kind of power. So what we propose in the future sense is this. So this is a smart grid technology which would eventually bring about a change. I'm sure a lot of people in this house or a lot of people would be looking at this kind of scenarios in the coming days. So when we are talking about a Viksit Bharat of 2047, it cannot be age-old 1975, 1980 grid lines. We need to do a lot of underground transition. We need to do a lot of introduction of smart grid technology at every levels. So what we propose is introduction, because we already have renewable production which is coming in at the generation stage. So we need to have intelligent substations at the injection level. That is what we propose. Now we also need to have intelligent substations at the transmission level, because again, this, if it is smart here and if it is not smart, it doesn't go hand in hand. So this has to get smart, this has to get smart. And the third part is where the distribution DISCOMs also need to be get smart. So it doesn't work in silos. So we need to have intelligent smart grids right from generation, transmission to distribution. And the fourth, we also need net metering and smart meters at homes. That is where presently the government of India is doing it under RDSs, under the smart metering scheme, under the net metering scheme. So what we propose is industries also come up with off-grid systems for storage, and they also have complete energy accounting systems so that the consumption in the manufacturing sector goes low. We need to have good data centers. Data centers and energy accounting centers are one which is lacking. We all talk about adoption of technology from the Americans, from the Spanish, from the French, but I think India, ranging as the third largest or second largest consumer and producer of power, I think if we don't have data centers and storage intelligent systems, we will not be able to handle such kind of energy which is going to come into the grid. So we propose solar cells. That is where the third part you see, that is where we would be coming up with charging stations, which has to be again intelligent. We need to have rooftop systems, which is in accordance to the PM Surya Ghar Bijli Yojana, which when you see about 1 crore households have solar rooftops, you have battery storage systems. We need to come up with that. And we also need to have a proper net metering, which has to happen. So that is where the smart metering would happen. The data centers, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this. During the introduction of the smart city mission, way back, let's say in about 10 years back, a lot of talk happened about NOC centers, ICCC centers, even command and control centers, which are still operational. But if you talk about the energy sector, a lot of private power producers are having this. Even PGCL has a good NOC center, but I'm not sure whether every DISCOM has a proper SCADA network or a NOC center which is there. So this is where the private sector can explore a lot of things. And we propose that the smart grid technology should be propagated so that we are able to grow up to the international standards. So this is how it will transition. Key applications where the private sector can enroll in and coordinate with the government sectors. Generation, transmission and distribution, we have a wide area of monitoring and control. We also require ICT integration across the control centers over industrial base, whereas the residential base, and across the transmission grids. We're also looking at renewable and distributed generation integration, because we have solar cycles coming, we have wind cycles coming, we are talking about newer technologies of coming, but it has to go on with the fossil grid. So the fossil thermal grid has to be able to integrate with this. That is where the smart grid technology comes. Along with this, people who are in the transmission sector has also have to work on transmission enhancement applications. It cannot be just putting 765 kV lines, additional capacities. You also need technology to control those kind of transmission grids. And distribution grid system, of course, we have DMS systems, we have ADMS systems, we need to have adapted distribution grid systems in the future. and also have advanced metering infrastructure. So this is already coming in place, and I'm sure the industry is gearing up to match up to the standards. And eventually, we also will have EV charging infrastructure. So if you're talking about green hydrogen vehicles, we're talking about EV vehicles. A vehicle cannot run more than 600 kilometers without EV charging stations. So this is where we need to look for newer technologies for putting up charging stations near the gas stations. Also, there are new technologies which are putting up charging stations from your 11 kV pole lines also. So still probably not in India, but it's time that we adopt it as soon as possible. And the customer side systems. By doing all these things, if you're not able to provide customer satisfaction, then all this goes for a toss. So eventually what we see is customer side management, your phase of your DISCOM, the phase of your transmission grid, the phase of the power industry has to have customer satisfaction. If they give you 100, you stand a case. If they give you 50, you don't stand a case. So this is how you need to gear up. And the last and not the least, we need to have battery energy storage systems as a part of the newest innovation. And I'm sure a lot of people are looking at energy storage systems in the coming future. So I rest my case and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sri Arun Mahesh Babu IAS, Managing Director, UGVCL and GPCL, for sharing his thoughts, and quite an insightful presentation where he talked about the kind of work being done in the state of Gujarat and how they are also banking on technology innovation for creating a smart ecosystem, if I may say so, in terms of generation, distribution and transmission, and also what the future looks ahead. He also gave an example of the Sun Temple, and the entire village has been transformed into a solar village, and now they're trying to integrate that in other districts as well. Quite an insightful presentation. So we had a presentation from the government. Let's have a perspective from industry as well.